Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is apparently getting some heat for not criticizing Nazis, like actual Nazis. Now, there's video circulating of an event over the weekend on Twitter, which showed a handful of people, Nazis, that were standing outside a strip mall in the Orlando area of Waterford Lakes, a relatively small gathering of people who were very much and very obvious neo-Nazis. Take a look.
Hey, this one, what he did. No more Jews. You get some black power, you got white power. White power. White pride's when you think it, white power is when you live it.
All right, so look, I showed you that because obvious Nazis. Obvious. Because, and the thing is, unfortunately, when you say that, like, oh, these people are Nazis, right? There's always those people that show up and that are like, how dare you call anything the right does Nazis? You're just making it up. They're not actually not. No, the literal Nazis. And there was far more that were there. Far more that was said that I could not air. That I couldn't air. So that said, right? That's Nazis. They're in Florida. Now, what does Ron DeSantis have to say about this? Apparently nothing. Nothing at all. He hasn't condemned it. And so when some people ask, like, hey, what about the Nazis that, had a demonstration that felt emboldened enough? And this is what's important here. They're very, very bold to go out there and do very public hate demonstrations. And so people ask DeSantis, hey, what do you feel about that? How do you feel about that? All right, that there's Nazis in your state. Apparently, though, asking him is too much. It's too much. Here's spokeswoman Christina Pushaw, who wrote in response to this, to a tweet asking if DeSantis will issue a condemnation of said demonstration. Quote, so if the governor himself does not issue a public statement of specific condemnation of whoever this group is, within a time period that the left deems acceptable, he is smeared as a Nazi sympathizer by default? Yes. Yes, actually it does. Hey, look, I don't make the rules here, all right? I'm just going by GOP rules, all right? Again, Republican rules, and you can go back to when, I don't know, anytime a Muslim, a radical jihadist, right, did some sort of terrorist attack overseas, right? So now every time that happened, and it does happen, well, the right wing came out and said, oh, any Muslims in the government? Keith Ellison, are you going to denounce it? Are you going to denounce radical Islam? Just say it. You have to say it. Why aren't you saying it? Why aren't you saying radical Islam? It's radical Islam. Ilhan Omar, Jihad Squad. Are you going to say something about it? Radical Islam. It's radical Islam. So, wait, they're responsible for a very tiny minority of radical, extremists, right? Every Muslim to them is responsible for that and has to come out and denounce that. So then when we apply the same rules, like, hey, there was a white nationalist or there's Nazis that were doing some very hateful stuff, saying some very hateful things, and even far right wingers that were doing some violence, killing police officers. Why don't you say something about that? Why don't you denounce that? Oh no, that's unfair. Oh my God, that's so unfair. I can't believe you're smearing me for not, for basically saying nothing about the neo-Nazis. Again, this isn't our rules. You made the rules. We're just following what you had done. I mean, again, if you think that it was the duty of every Muslim to loudly denounce this, then if you were actually fair and even-handed, you say, okay, well, white nationalist, a white person, said some pretty horrible things. I guess I'm going to come out and denounce it. Now, it's the same thing, too, when you look at criticism of the right-wing Israeli government and some of their human rights abuses, right? Now, if you criticize them as a Democrat very lightly, well, now, according to the right wing, the Democratic Party has to denounce them all as being anti-Semitic. For example, the same thing they did to Ilhan Omar. They censured her. So, excuse me for calling out the fact that there seems to be a little bit of a double standard, especially since here you have members of the far right doing actual anti-Semitism. Call it out. It's not hard. This is not difficult. It takes 2 seconds. And let me give you an example, right? Orlando Mayor Buddy Dyer, he put out this tweet. Anti-Semitism and hatred are not welcome in this community. Despite displays of hate in Central Florida this weekend, our collective commitment to building an inclusive, compassionate community for all is stronger than ever. Well, there it is. There it is. Wow. Very, very simple. Ron DeSantis could have done that, and nobody would have mentioned anything, because that's the right thing to do. Boy, that was super hard, wasn't it? Wow. Really, really difficult. Really difficult. Now, one more thing. In a now deleted tweet, Pushaw also appeared to question whether the demonstration was fake, not real. Like, oh, how do we know these are actual real Nazis? Now, to be fair, I think that's fair criticism right there, questioning whether or not it's real. Why? It's because, well, in Virginia, you had the group Lincoln Project. Lincoln Project went and did a staged Nazi thing. And that was involved in the state's gubernatorial election. So that right there, and by the way, it's still not the left. Lincoln Project is a right-wing group made of Republicans. So that's why Lincoln Project is trash. And by the way, I say that even though I did enjoy some of their videos that were going after Trump. They're well produced, et cetera, et cetera. They're fun, but they're still Republicans. They're still right-wingers. And that whole group was essentially a grift to try to take money from resistance libs. True. It's true. Like I said, when they did that that staged Nazi video, well, that was some real bullshit. But why? Because it hands ammunition to people who might actually have a stake in defending white nationalists. It's very, very dishonest of them. But, again, that's pretty typical when it comes to right-wingers and their ads. I have no problems with tough ads, but just be honest, stay honest. But in this one, they flew way too close to the sun. Look, there's plenty of actual white nationalists at the far right. Why not just show them? Show them instead. Just don't make it up. Don't make things up. It helps the opposition. Okay. But in that same thread, by the way, Pushaw tweets, Democrat politicians have falsely insinuated all weekend that the governor's policies are somehow responsible for the protests with Nazi symbols. The same Dem politicians insist falsely that hate groups are the governor's base. It's just so wrong, sick, and exhausting sometimes. Now, one person responds to this, saying, quote, they spend massive amounts of time trying to stir up controversy where it simply doesn't exist. If, in fact, the swastika poster people are human beings, there's absolutely nothing from the governor's desk that promotes or condones it. Keyword if they're even real. Well, they are real. They are real. It's apparently, she even responded saying, it is real. They're called the National Socialist Movement. But that's essentially what Nazis are. They're not actually socialists, though, because it's a far-right movement. But she said, never heard of this group before today. It's less than 200 people, and they've been around for 20 years, pulling nasty, hateful stunts. In any case, it has nothing to do with Governor DeSantis, the GOP, etc. Okay, but you know that white nationalists support the GOP. Now, look, you know the old saying, right? Not all Republicans are Nazis, obviously. Well, obviously. But all Nazis happen to be right-wingers and Republicans. You know why? It's because it's based on their ideology. It's based on their policies. The same policies that try to keep black people and immigrants down while helping only wealthy white people. And to help them stay wealthy and powerful.